Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, General Law 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's July 16, 2022 revised order extending remote participation by all members in any meeting of a public body. This meeting of the Great Barrington Finance Committee will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and/or parties with a right and/or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the town's website. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to listen to the meeting may do so in the following manner. See the instructions at the top of the agenda. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. Pursuant to Massachusetts General Law 7C 30A, Section 20F, after notifying the chair of the public body, any person may make a video or audio recording of an open session of a meeting of a public body or may transmit the meeting through any medium. At the beginning of the meeting, the chair shall inform other attendees of any such recordings. Mark, are you aware of any other recordings? Good. And any member of the public wishing to speak at the meeting must receive the permission of the chair. So with that being done, we will call the meeting to order and a roll call vote. Milena?
Aye.
Madonna?
Aye.
Richard?
Aye.
And Ann?
Aye.
And Philip Orenstein is here. All righty. So do we have any committee member announcements or statements? Okay.
This is Ann.
Yes.
I don't know if this is appropriate for this time, but I guess I just wanted to bring up to the committee that we are one of the few committees that has a sort of standing meeting at the exact same day and time every month as another standing committee. That's the Affordable Housing Trust Committee. And so we're the third Tuesday of every month at 6:30, and they're the third Tuesday of every month at 6:30. And I realized that, you know, the town has set it up so that there can be 2 Zoom meetings at once, but it just seems to me we could easily avoid potential problems in the future if we're on Zoom to go to the second Tuesday of every month instead of the third Tuesday of every month. So I guess I just want to throw that out. I don't know if people schedule their Tuesdays around second, third, and fourth Tuesdays. It'd be the same day of the week, but we wouldn't run into this problem of having 2 committees at the same time. So I just want to put that out there for consideration. And by the way, we are doing December meeting is already the second Tuesday. So as we look ahead to January or to all of 2023, that could just avoid Zoom conflicts. So
it may be a problem for zoning, because zoning always meets on a Tuesday if they meet. So it's haphazard, you know. So but I do know it meets on Tuesday. We haven't had any conflicts yet, but I'm on that committee.
and do they meet
This
on Tuesday?
and
Oh,
the CPC also meets on Tuesdays. Of course, normally I think it has been second Tuesdays if needed, but also it can change. So
okay.
Mark, there's I know we haven't given you any time to check this out, but do you have any reaction to that idea?
No, I mean, that's fine on my end. I would like to go through the various Zoom accounts though and make sure that we're not competing with any other boards and committees, but it should be in line with what you're seeing on the calendar. So I don't see not expecting any problems.
Although just to review and rewind the tape a bit, I think you've taken the view that our prior problems are not related to just sort of overlapping meetings, was more other issues relating to how meetings are set up.
Yeah, as long as we know that there are two meetings happening, we can move them, we can move one to a different account. And if everyone's using the webinar format, we can see everything. The glitch last time was that the Affordable Housing Trust was using the old open meeting format, which you can't see both lists at one time, so.
And Mark, when and if we ever go back to in-person meetings, how will we manage the two meetings at the same time every month?
That's just a matter of reserving the meeting room. And right now we are doing hybrid meetings for many of the boards and committees, and that requires reserving that room. So
hypothetically, if the Affordable Housing Trust and the Finance Committee both wanted to reserve that room for their meetings, that would be a problem, right?
correct.
Right.
So I did look back on the town calendar, looking at past weeks and months.
Right.
And it doesn't seem like there was a whole lot else going on other Tuesdays at 6 or 6:30. Looking forward, and what's also amazing is the only two committees that seem to be scheduling out to the future are the Affordable Housing Trust Committee and the Finance Committee. So it's just, if you look forward in the calendar, it's the only meetings and they conflict. So that's what led me to think we had some flexibility. But I'm not saying, again, we can keep going. It just seemed odd that the only standing committee meetings are conflicting meetings. So.
Okay, well, I'm not sure we have an answer
All
to
right,
this
that's
now,
my statement.
but let's all ponder that one a bit.
Phil, you're muted.
I
At least I can't hear you.
I don't believe I'm muted.
No, I can
Can
hear
other
you.
people hear Phil?
Yeah, Richard can hear me.
I can hear everybody.
Yeah,
It's you. Can you hear us now?
Yeah. Okay. Yes, I'm
Oh,
fine.
you can hear us now.
Now I can.
Okay, all right. We weren't just joking with you. We were talking. Okay, so, all right, so no other announcements or statements. We'll move to the minutes. We have two sets here. One is for we could take them in sequence. Do we have a motion for the minutes of October 6th?
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion or comment on the minutes? Seeing none, vote on that. Milena,
Aye.
Madonna,
Aye.
Richard,
aye.
Anne?
Aye.
Yeah, and I'm aye as well. So the minutes of October 6th are approved. Moving to the October 18th minutes. Do we have a motion on those?
So moved.
Seconded,
Okay, any discussion or comments on that? Seeing none, roll call vote. Milena,
Aye.
Madonna,
Aye.
Anne,
Aye.
Richard,
aye.
and I'm aye as well. So both sets of minutes are approved. Thank you, and thank you to Stacy. We'll move to the town manager update, and there's a couple of items there, so I will turn it over to Mark.
Thanks, Phil. Looks like Paul and Kara are on the line, so I'm going to go ahead and open their mics to explain the reserve fund transfer request from the police department. And I just sent a text message to Joe Averdale, hoping he can join us for the next one. So go ahead, Chief. Go ahead, Kara. Your mics are open.
Hi, thank you for this time. Unfortunately, regretfully, we have to come to you to request this money transfer. We had some unforeseen openings, departures of officers, and a pending retirement that we didn't anticipate. And I'd also like you to consider, since I put this request in on the 7th, I'm learning more that we possibly are losing 2 more officers in the near future. I've had completed an interview with one of the other agencies for their background for one of our candidates. I feel this is direct effect of one of the negative effects of police reform. what's happening is they've made it very difficult for smaller police agencies such as us to maintain part-time officers due to the training requirements. For example, a lot of the part-time officers held positions as secondary jobs working for us, and the training requirements were not quite up to the full-time level. With police reform, they required that to happen. So part-time officers were going to be required to take attend 3 different whole weeks of training to get up to the minimum qualifications. And a lot of our officers just couldn't do that, take that much time off of work. That's someone don't even get that much earned time off. So what's happened is a full-time trained officer has become a premium, where other agencies are looking for them and trying to attract them to their municipality. So what's happened is some of our officers have left for other opportunities, either bigger departments or other police agencies, and then with the addition of some pending retirements and a disability retirement that we weren't sure what the status was, it created this critical staffing issue for us, unfortunately. So we're looking to at least try to fill 5 positions, knowing that anticipated retirement and the 2 pending. And like I said just a second ago, that it looks like those are probably going to happen early spring. One's possibly February, the other's March. So I'd like you to consider that second option for the additional funds also, if you would. If you have any questions, feel free to ask.
Yeah, I have a question. So
Go ahead.
the training, is that one-off, or is this a training that regardless of how much experience the officer you are trying to recruit has to go through? I'm just not, entirely familiar with the process here.
So in order to become a certified police officer through the Post Commission, which certifies all police in Massachusetts now as a result of police reform, they have to attend a full-time municipal police training academy, which is approximately 800 hours of training. It's about 5.5 months long. So in order for them to work, that's a minimum standard that they have to meet.
I'm sorry, did you say 800 hours or 800? I think.
800 hours. It's
Okay,
about
right.
5.5 months long. Yeah.
But this regardless how much experience they already have, or this is just
Correct.
every time you change job,
Nope.
you have to go through that?
Once you're certified, you're certified. We just don't have anybody that is a certified full-time police officer that has applied to work for us.
I see. So your applicants, none of them has that certification, correct?
Correct.
I
Yes.
see.
And
Okay.
that's one of the reasons we're losing some, is because other municipalities see the value in not having to train somebody.
Right.
And
so
if they can
self-recruit.
recruit from
Yeah,
somebody who's already trained from another town,
okay,
that's what's happening.
okay.
Um,
So you are not really expecting to have any candidates who would be fully certified at this point?
That's correct. We at the town meeting this past year, we voted to get out of civil service. Since then, the town did pass that. We held our own hiring exam last month. We had 10 applicants take it. All 10 passed. 2 do not meet the age requirement, so that left us with eight applicants that we can choose from.
Okay.
Actually 7, because one's still in college and he actually has to defer his eligibility.
Mhm.
Chief Storti, can I ask a couple questions, or Phil, can I ask a couple
Go
questions?
ahead, go ahead.
Yeah, so can I just ask in terms about this is more just to think about what you're dealing with. When you said there are 5 openings, are these full-time police officers lines or part-time?
Full-time. We currently have no part-time officers left. All when police reform took place, anybody with the last name that started from A through H had until July 1st of 2023 to complete the Bridge Academy to try to maintain their certification, and none of them could maintain that. So we currently have 0 part-time officers.
And this is, you said it's 5.5 months of training?
Yes, it's about 20, I believe 26 weeks. It could be, I think it's 26 or 28 weeks. It changes every once in a while. I believe it's 26
And that-
weeks.
And that's full to 40 hours a week or?
Yes, and they cannot work while they're attending the academy because they don't become a certified police officer until the graduation of the academy.
And are they paid a salary? I mean, are they hired and paid a salary to attend this training?
Yes, they are.
Okay. I mean, I can't imagine anybody
they
would
would-
do it.
The day one of their academy would be their appointment date as a police officer, where we would compensate them under the union contract.
Okay, I see. Okay. And you were asking, and I'm sorry I missed this. You sort of said us to consider a second request, not just the first request. And I'm sorry. I
The
only see
last
the one.
The last paragraph of my the third of the 3 paragraphs that I wrote prior to
Mhm.
the account stuff. I just put a note or a paragraph, quick paragraph in it, just to make you aware that we have the potential of losing 2 other candidates. I knew that 2 other police agencies were looking at these candidates and they were in the hiring process. Since I submitted this letter, their applications have moved further along in the process and are looking like they're probably going to happen.
So you're really asking us to consider 34,700, is that right? So 23,300 plus 11,400, correct?
Yes, and if again, as of last evening, I learned a little bit more that those positions could become vacant for us. And if they don't, from my understanding, we could just return the money, or it would go back if I don't end up using it. But just to avoid me having to come back to you again in a couple months or another month from now to say those officers did leave, just asking you to consider it.
Mhm.
So if they did leave, do you have the other 2 candidates lined up that you would be adding to the training group?
There are 7 eligible people on our established list that did interview and expressed interest. So it is a possibility.
Okay.
The other option would be if I exhausted that list, I would just have to give another exam, and there's actually no cost to the town to do that exam. It's done through a private vendor, and the people taking the exam pay to take the exam, and that's how the vendor gets compensated.
Okay, do you just, purely on the budgetary front, just in terms of the math, are you, because you've had all these departures, are you running below your budget in terms of your overall compensation numbers so far this year?
Yeah, just last week or 2 weeks ago, Karen and I sat down and went over the budget, and because we are using a lot of overtime. We have written a grant. Kara wrote a grant and just received $44,000 from the state 911 to help cover some of those overtime costs. In addition, we're working on a grant that we're going to be asking Mark to sign tomorrow to cover the training for these new people that we're trying to hire to cover all their dispatch training, which will be pretty substantial. I believe our quick math on it today, that grant will be above $30,000. That will help offset some of that. So with the extra funds that will be in the part-time line as a safety net, we're pretty confident that we can make it through this fiscal year.
Okay, so it sounds like you're in no way in a position where you would have savings from budgetary dollars that weren't used to pay the officers who left that you could use for the training program. You've used those monies up through overtime.
Yes,
to fill the spots.
yes, that's correct.
All right. Basic question: what the training program, the academy, is that run by the state or is it a private entity?
No, it's run by the state, and overseen. It's run by the Massachusetts Criminal Justice Training Council.
Okay.
And it's the certification at the end of that is overseen by the post commission.
Okay, and so this academy fee, I presume, is sort of the same rate that any town in the Commonwealth will be paying. Is that fair?
That would be the fee. Yes,
Yeah.
they raised the fee this year to $3,200 an officer, and that is set by the state. Every municipality pays the same amount.
Okay, but as you said, you are at the same time that you need these monies as a backstop, you're also trying to get a grant from the state to offset some of those amounts. Did I hear that right?
No, that would be just for the dispatch training. So
Okay, so that's
that would help
that's in it.
help
Okay.
offset my budget.
Okay, so
my
that's
current
in
budget.
addition, that's a training in addition to the academy.
Correct.
All right.
Because we are a full 911 dispatch center, there's a whole secondary training that that's involved with that, that the state 911 grant will help fund. Strictly dispatch training,
Okay.
not
Can I
police
just-
officer training.
Can I ask a question about the overtime? You said there was unusual level of overtime this year. Was that due to some events, or is it something that happens every year, or how does that work for the budget process?
This year is strictly because of if I evaluate it, it goes back to police reform and our part-time officers unable to maintain their certification through the state.
So you have to fill gaps in staffing with staff you have.
Correct.
which-
I have 14 full-time officers that are maintaining all the open shifts.
So
And
what
that's
happened?
counting me.
So what happened with the part-time staff? I'm not
I
clear.
have the police reform required them to maintain a higher level of training, and none
Right.
of them could maintain that training. They have other jobs and they couldn't either train, or they chose not to do it anymore because the complications it took to maintain their police certification.
Oh, so the part-time staff just left, and you had to use the full-time officers who were fully trained?
They
it-
became decertified after July 1st,
Oh, I
2023,
see.
because
Okay.
they all had the last name that started with an A through an H.
Okay, so, okay, so basically, but if I understand it, so until the new recruits get fully certified, you will have to run significant overtime, right?
That's correct.
Okay,
We've been doing it since July 1. I had three part-time officers that I was hoping that would continue and maintain their training. They started it.
Mhm.
It just became too much of a burden and they couldn't maintain it,
Right,
and they chose to leave.
I'm sorry, just to correct you for the record, Paul, Chief Storty, rather, you were saying that those officers became decertified as of July 1, 2023. I think you mean of 22, right?
I'm sorry. Yes,
But
that's correct.
That's fiscal
Yeah.
23, yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yes, 2022.
I
This
get
past
that wrong
July.
all the time too, so that's fine. But just for the record, it was for our minutes, that would be, they became decertified as of July 1, 2022, which is the first
Yes.
day of fiscal 23, right?
Yes.
Okay, I get that wrong all the time myself, so. Okay, do we have any other questions for the chief? Okay, do we have a motion?
This is Ann. I'll make a motion that.
Well, your audio is terrible. Ann?
The reserve fund transfer. request. Is it, can you hear me? No.
And we're gonna have to fire you on that one. Okay, we couldn't hear you at all. Could someone else make a motion? Who has better audio? Madonna,
Can you
want
hear me now?
Are we gonna make I could make a motion that we fund the police for 34,700. Is that correct? For the 23,300 that they were asking for, plus the 11,400 additional cost, for a total of $34,700 from the reserve fund.
Second,
Yes? Okay, great. Any discussion? Just one point, Mark, if this is passed, can I just, obviously, just if you can, before you ask me to sign it, can you update the memo just to make it more evident that we're approving the full, at this point, we're approving the full 23 plus the 11.4.
Will do. I'll make sure the copy in the file, or sorry, in the folder on the counter reflects that.
Great, thank you. So roll call vote. Milena,
Aye.
Madonna,
Aye.
Ann,
Aye.
Richard,
Aye.
and I'm I as well. The request is approved. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you very much. I appreciate
Thank
it.
you, Chief.
Thanks.
Back to you, Mark.
Okay, so the next one I will cover because Joe Aberdale just replied, he is stuck in traffic in Boston. So this is a pretty straightforward request anyway, but so we were notified about a month or so ago that state statute required us, any municipality, to recycle mattresses rather than disposing of mattresses going forward. So in order to do that, we need an area where we can store these mattresses, bag them and keep them dry, which we do not currently have at our transfer station. So this $4,000 request would fund the purchase of a storage unit in order to do that, rather than renting.
Mark, can I ask you, the storage unit, I mean, do you feel confident that the size will handle, you know, whatever the needs the community has for that?
Yeah,
guys
well-
look into it, what was disposed in the past?
Yeah, I don't know the exact number of how many it will store, how many mattresses and box springs, but what we can do is, as we get closer and closer to filling that unit, schedule for a pickup. So we'll figure that out over
Oh, I
time.
see,
How
okay, in terms of the
frequently.
schedule. Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
We also will have kind of an indication here at Town Hall on how many disposal tickets we're selling. So if we
Mhm.
see an influx of sales, we'll be able to get out ahead of that and schedule for pickups.
Okay.
And is this literally a shipping container?
Yeah,
And is it, what have they told you about its waterproof characteristics?
I can't answer that question. I'm sorry. I don't know if Joe has the answer to that either, but it is what you're imagining, a shipping container.
Okay, I just, long story short, from personal experience, you might want to just, Joe probably knows this better than I do, but you should check on that point. Just to be aware of what it does and what it doesn't do with respect to the rain and the snow.
I know that Monterey, the transfer station in Monterey has one of those big containers, and they completely fill it, and it's you know, end on end on end, and they get a lot of mattresses in there, and it's watertight. So I mean, they might be a good source for anybody to, you know, ask the Monterey transfer station what they have.
I think it says in the description for the request, if you look at that, it says it's
Evian, yeah, I think
watertight.
they're called Evian containers, yeah, they say they're watertight.
Yeah.
Oh,
they're-
okay. Well, I didn't read that well enough. Okay, good, great. Do we have a
I'll
motion?
make a mo- Can I make a
I
motion?
move that we reserve, that we approve the reserve fund transfer of $4,000 to the Department of Public Works for the purchase of a place to store mattresses for disposal and recycling.
Second,
Second.
Roll call vote. I'm sorry, any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote. Milena,
Aye.
Madonna,
aye.
Ann,
Aye.
Richard,
Aye.
and I'm I as well. So that request is approved.
Great, thank you. Can I proceed with the other updates for this
Please,
evening?
please.
Okay, so next on the list is Housatonic Waterworks, and I would prefer not to get too deep in the details on this one, but I can confirm that we will receive some state funding very soon, and that a press release, a press statement will be going out shortly. I spoke to Smitty's office this morning. provided some feedback, some edits on that draft press release, and they were going to bounce it off of Senator Hines' office. And that should be going out within a day or two.
Excellent.
Yeah, so good news there. The funding will, as you know, allow us to provide some temporary relief to Housatonic Waterworks customers. And the only piece that's unclear at this time is the timeline on when those funds will be available. So I'll keep in contact with Smitty's office, with Senator Hines' office, and as soon as I have an update to share, I'll let you know.
Okay, well, that's great news. Obviously, if the actual availability of the money is not what you would have hoped, feel free to come back to us, and I guess the committee could consider things there.
Great, thank you.
But
Thank you.
It sounds like we don't need that, so that's great news. Do you have a plan with what you're going to do with the money?
So once I have a timeline from either Smitty or Adam's office, I'll take this topic back to the board and ask them to consider 3 options. One would be, or any combination of these options. The first would be purchasing bottled water. And by bottled water, I don't mean individual disposable bottles. I mean 5-gallon containers, recyclable containers, for every household for the worst 8 to 10 week stretch next summer. I think we're all anticipating another summer of water issues in Housatonic until they get a permanent solution in place. The second option would be to consider small grants for homeowners to purchase water filtration units for their homes, or to purchase replacement filters if they already have one installed. And then the third option would be to purchase and install a 1, 3, and 5-gallon water filling station somewhere in town, so that Housatonic residents could have access to a bottle filling station similar to what you see when you walk in the co-op, but just on the right-hand side in the entranceway. So we'll talk about that very soon.
Excellent ideas.
Great.
Yeah.
Hope that goes well.
Just a couple questions. So November 21st on Monday is another meeting about another possible long-term solution. Is there time for that meeting yet?
6 o'clock, it's a regularly scheduled select board meeting.
Oh, it's at the
And-
regular select board meeting.
Yeah, we've invited the Great Barrington Fire District Prudential Committee in to talk about what a potential merger could
Right.
look like of the 2 water systems.
Okay, so then this wouldn't get on the agenda for the, so I assume that's going to be the whole select board meeting or just part of it? Is there any plan?
We have a very full agenda for Monday, so this is one part of the agenda at this point.
Okay, because I know this is slightly off the Housatonic Waterworks topic, but are we still thinking of looking at the finance policy on the Monday meeting or no?
I actually have a note here. I haven't forgotten about you. I don't think it will be on Monday's agenda, but I'm thinking that perhaps we could look at the 21st as another option. I need to go back through those emails, check the agenda, and then reply to them. I haven't forgotten. I have a sticky note right in front of me here.
Okay, so the 21st is Monday, right? I think the 21st is Monday, so.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You're right. The December 5th meeting,
Okay,
the next meeting. Sorry.
okay.
I lost a few days this month.
That's all right. I just wanted, so, okay, 'cause I was working on my schedule too, so not gonna be, well, I'm gonna come on the 21st anyway. So, because I want to hear about the Housatonic water. And when you said the water a fountain or water provision stations, when you said in town, do you mean in Housatonic or in downtown near the town hall?
For the filling station?
Yeah.
We haven't really made any decisions yet. It would obviously be more convenient for Housatonic residents for it to be in Housatonic, but then we have to have a pretty substantial water filtration system.
Oh, right.
to Clean that water also.
Sorry, yeah. Got
So
it.
we'll, yeah, if they choose that option, we'll have to do a little more research to find out how much that unit will cost to purchase, how much it will cost to install, and how much remaining funds we have to filter it if the location is in Housatonic.
Okay, thank you. That makes perfect sense.
Okay, next on the list it is cannabis cash. So I did receive an update, a summary from David Dineski, our attorney, this morning. And I'll share that email with you before I leave my office tonight. It's a little vague. You'll see when you read it, it's a little vague, but it should provide us with some guidance going into our host community agreement negotiations, which should be starting in December with the various retailers in town, and also help guide us through the fiscal 24 budget process. So take a look at it. After you receive it, I'll just send it to the full finance committee. I'll send it to the select board. And if you have any questions, just reach out and let me know. And if I can't answer them, I will pass them along to David for clarification.
Okay, all right, I guess we'll take a look at that. For those members of the board who weren't in the budget process last few years, just broad context, this relates to monies that the town has received under the host agreements, and whether and the flexibility the town has to allocate them for more general purpose items in the budget, or are we restricted to using it in a much more narrow way pursuant to the host agreements that are in place right now. So it's actually sort of a fairly relevant topic, as you'll see in a couple of months as we go through the budget process, as to how the town can spend this money. So it's a good problem because the money's there. The question is, how can we spend it? So I guess let's take a look at the memo and we'll take it from there.
Yeah, you'll see this when I send it out later tonight, but the good news is David provided a bullet list of acceptable uses for that 3% community impact fund money. So I don't think that we need to focus it so much so on prevention, as we have in the past couple of years. But you'll see when you take a look
Okay,
at
so
it.
he's broadening, he's not saying that we have full discussion, but he's broadening the list of items that it can be utilized in the community improvement category.
Yeah, it's a pretty extensive list,
Sorry,
actually.
preservation category, yeah.
Yeah, it was surprising.
Okay.
Mark, I have a question just to make sure that I'm reading it correctly. It says in the title excludes community impact fee. So does it mean there is additional portion of that revenue that has been earmarked for community impact purposes?
Melinda, I believe you're looking ahead in the packet to the numbers that I put together.
Yeah, I'm looking
Yeah,
at
so
that.
that's why don't we hold off on that, because I put those numbers together and it's a separate topic.
Mark, you are referring to the community impact fees, correct?
Yes.
That is
Yeah.
specifically what that, and Melena, those numbers are not in the numbers that Phil presented in the packet.
They are not included in this. It said excluded, right? So they're separate.
Right, so
Scheme
yeah,
that
so
is
it is obviously the
related
same
to that,
topic.
yeah.
I mean, so broadly speaking, there's 3%, there's a 3% local revenue tax, and then there's a 3% community preservation. Am I getting my terms right, Mark? Community impact fee, I'm sorry.
Right.
So, and the two of them are, both 3%. They're collected under a different process, but they're about the same. So the numbers that are released by the state that I was able to get, they're public data, that they only release the numbers for the local option revenue, and they don't release the numbers for the community impact fee. So that's why that's the way it is.
Yeah, so marijuana or cannabis revenues are different, that in addition to paying a local option tax, that part of which comes back to the town, they also have to pay this community impact fee. This was part of the sort of.
It was part of the agreement, right? Yeah.
The agreement, right. And there's been discussion and there's been difference of opinion about how that can be used. So that's what
The community impact.
community impact, right.
Okay.
The local option we can use however we want.
Anyway, yeah, that could be used as part of the budgetary process. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so I would just suggest that at some point, and we'll come back to this, you probably want to again, there's a lot of excellent write-ups on the town website about community impact fee and how they're collected and what they're used for. And so it would be useful. There's a lot of ways to sort of get a little more of a background on that. This particular question is kind of a level 2 question of just trying to confirm exactly how we can spend that impact fee. And because the language in the host agreements is relatively vague, so we needed to have Mark go to the town council to get a little more advice on what that really means from a practical standpoint,
Okay, thanks.
because it's actually becoming, it's a pretty big pile of money.
Yeah, and as you read David's opinion, you can tell that we're not the only community struggling with this.
Right.
And we have every community that is collecting these fees they're having the same conversations we're having. So
Yeah, no, it's a very practical issue in the sense that as when we get to if we cut to the end of the budget process, it's the this issue is the difference between, you know, one level of potentially tax increase and another level. So it you know, it really kind of hits it hits home in terms of the budget process.
Can I just, I wonder if, Mark, this memo that you're forwarding to us, we should plan to put that in the packet for the next meeting so that we discuss it publicly in a meeting.
sure, there's an attachment included as well. And unfortunately, like I said, you'll see the date and time stamp on it, but I just received it at like 3:20 this morning. So it didn't make it in time for your packet, but you could certainly include it in the next packet.
So really, literally 3 o'clock in the morning today, or is it, wow,
Yeah,
great. All right, well, good thing we asked him to do it about a year ago, right? No, he's a busy fellow. I'm sorry.
yeah, we have a lot of items on his plate. So
Yeah, no, we've kept him busy. So you've
Yeah.
kept him busy. Well, thank you for following up on that. So we'll take a look at that and we'll come back with questions at the next meeting if we need to.
sounds good.
And then
Yes.
the last item on your,
Yeah, I have one more item to share tonight, and that's that our new accountant and financial coordinator will be starting her work here with Great Barrington on December 5th.
Mm,
Her name's Allison Crespo, and she's currently serving as the city accountant in Pittsfield.
mm,
And
nice.
she's worked for the city since January of 2006 in various finance related roles. So she'll work with Lauren Sartori Hobgood, our interim financial coordinator, to ensure that we have a very, very smooth transition. And she'll be diving right into the budget season in week 1. So
Great.
exciting news. We're looking forward to welcoming her.
That's
okay.
right.
well,
And Mark, what's your start date? Did you say
December 5th.
December 5th?
Yeah,
Would it be possible for her to come to our December meeting to meet us?
yeah, absolutely.
That would be- And we could put her early, maybe we can even put her on early on the agenda, so
Mhm.
you might want to sit through and.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she'll be attending your meetings on a regular basis going forward. So.
Terrific. Good job on that. If it, for the next meeting, if at all possible, it would be great. And I just say, if possible, to have a budget, you know, a budget, actual physical budget report for that meeting. Through whatever, you know, for whatever period you could do between, hopefully between Allison and I'm sorry, the interim accountant's name, I keep forgetting her name, but
Lauren,
Lauren, I mean, if they could muster together a report, that would be great, just because we're the finance committee and we need to ask for that. But you know, hopefully they can put something together.
sure. I will get a request out there for what, are you still deciding on your December meeting? That's right.
Our next meeting is December 13th. That's
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, it's the meetings after that that
Right,
are up
right,
for debate. Gotcha.
Right.
Okay. That's all I
Okay.
have.
Great, thank you, Mark. Okay, so next on the agenda, local option revenues. So I just again, some of you have seen this, some of you haven't, but I've just been throwing out some data over the last year or two. This is page 15 in the packet. This is actually an update to a report that was prepared by Sue Carmel, who was the former town accountant, relating to the local option revenues, and she put that together in August of last year. And it's like a 10-page PowerPoint presentation that was very helpful on a number of fronts. And hopefully a number of you have that already, because I may have already sent it to you, but if you don't have that, feel free to ping me and I can send that to you. But it talks about cannabis revenues as well as the room occupancy tax and the meals tax that are all very important parts of our town revenue, and also just interesting data to try to get a handle on, you know, trends, what's going up, what's going down, and their importance to the town's revenue. So this data is all public, so I was just found the right person in Boston to email, and they sent it to me. So just really quickly, the meals tax numbers, I think that's pretty self-explanatory. 0.75% of the meals come back to the town. Trend is very positive, continues to be positive. You know, obviously you could see the COVID effect last year and things bounced back very nicely. So that's all good there. But you know, purely speculation on my part. You know, it's probably something that would be higher if restaurants could open for more hours and more days if they had more staffing. So that's just an interesting thing to think about. Next page is the room occupancy tax, and this came up a bit in the conversations about the potential regulation of short-term rentals. So I put it out at that time, and now I'm just sort of updating that data. Again, nothing really pops out that dramatic here, except the trends remain, you know, quite positive, and that the, you know, post the COVID lockdown, the, you know, traditional lodging has returned to a much higher level relative to the short-term rentals. So that was definitely the case in fiscal 22, and that seems to be a pattern that's continuing in the first quarter of fiscal 23. But the trends there, you know, as you can see, year over year, you know, very positive, good news for the town, good news for our tourism business, and all that. And then lastly, what is the cannabis revenue? And as Milena asked before and Ann pointed out, again, broadly speaking, there's a 3% local option tax on cannabis revenue, and then there's a 3% community impact fee. And they're largely correct. If Sue Carmel was still here, she would talk about the mechanical differences between the two. They're not identical in terms of their timing and exactly how they're collected, but they're about the same. And the state was very open to give me the local option tax numbers, but the community impact fee just somehow is a little too sensitive for them to give out, although obviously the town staff has it. Interesting data here. I guess what I would just, to me, the interesting thing that pops out is that you know, you could see that the first quarter numbers for 2023 are pretty significantly lower than that for the prior year. So up until you know, probably the last 6 months, we've seen those numbers do nothing but increase dramatically. So we're it's maybe too early to identify a trend, but I think you're seeing that level off a bit and obviously diminish.
I think it's really interesting because when you think about it, that all the additional dispensaries open in the last year or so, right? I mean, we are up to 7 now, but you don't really see a corresponding increase, which makes perfect sense to me. But yeah.
Well, I guess what I took out of it is that as anyone driving around the county will see that there's a lot more competition.
Right. I mean, the market is what the market is. It gets just split. Yeah.
Yeah, so we have stores in Lee, we have all the stores in Pittsfield, and stores in Sheffield, and
yeah, but I think people thought that maybe it would be kind of, you know, growing
well,
but it didn't really.
I think just to make clear, I think in the select board discussions that I recall, I think there was always a pretty clear recognition that this would not increase forever, and that, you know, we would see more competition, and This is not something that will.
No, I don't really mean select board. I mean just public in general, you know. But I think what is really very interesting is the growth in the room occupancy tax. I mean, that's pretty significant. Even the restaurant business. So these are great trends. I mean, to see. I think both of them. Yeah.
No, it's definitely good news there. But and long story short, the reduction in the cannabis revenues, there's as Anne has explained to us over the years, is there's a 2-year lag to those dollars actually showing up in our budget process. So, you know, if we do see a dramatic reduction in fiscal 23 receipts, it will kind of have an impact on the 2025 budget. So we have.
Oh, you mean there is a lag
Yeah,
between when
yeah.
when the money is
Right,
used.
so-
Yeah.
Yeah,
And would you agree that's pretty, just broadly speaking, it's a 2-year lag?
yeah, right. So it sort of gets posted and then it takes a year to get certified. I mean, it's for
I
use.
see. There are some
so,
costs there. Yeah.
But I guess I also want, I will say we've been talking on the finance committee ever since we had this cannabis tax revenues that it was eventually going to level off,
Yeah.
if not taper off as the competition grows. So I think we just have, and I do want to say we, with the select board and all the budget meetings, talked about not counting on this as always being part of our revenue source, because, I will say, I think it helped immensely during.
Well,
Conservative, because we'll see how to use it, so.
Sorry, we lost you there, Anne. I think you were saying something very, very important and we lost you.
It was incredibly insightful.
Yeah,
Just that we have to be careful in how we plan to use this money, because we can't
Right.
count on it always.
yeah, we're also competing with other states opening up, and isn't New York starting to open up? So we're probably not going to get that revenue.
no,
I
absolutely.
mean, I think
yeah,
once
no,
New
it's a good
York
point.
and Connecticut open
The-
fully, I
the-
think it's gonna hit the market, but I think the
New
market.
Jersey stores are already open, so that's a good point.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, but I think, there will be more to open, so.
Okay, so it's something we all just need to keep in mind as we go into the budget process. And my comment again is, I think that the select board's been very clear that we can't rely on these monies, and I think we've said that too, but I think at the end of the day, we have definitely used these monies to offset potential tax increases, so we don't count our chickens before they hatch, but we really have essentially relied on these monies to keep our taxes keep our tax increases much smaller than they otherwise would be. So again, this will play out over a couple of years, so we'll just have to be all aware of that. So that was my only objective there.
Phil, thank you for these data. It's really helpful.
Very
Okay,
nice,
well,
thank you.
my pleasure. Just again, the state was actually very, very helpful in sending it over, although they send it over in kind of jumbled emails, so I had to put it together a bit. Okay, now next on the agenda, we move to Richard's first Community Preservation Committee update.
Yay.
And Richard, do you have a PowerPoint or anything? That's a
No
joke.
PowerPoint. At this stage of the meetings for the Community Preservation Committee, I can just give you a flavor of generally where they are, because they're only in accepting and reviewing step 1 applications for fiscal year 24. That's what happened on November 1st. Just as an overview for everyone, community preservation funds are intended for use in 4 general areas: open space, historic preservation, recreational land, and community housing. So in these applications, which were received by the committee, there were 10 applicants. The majority of them were highlighting projects in community housing, with historic preservation being an aspect of several of them. Open space was a very small contingent, but is continuing on work that has been done in previous years. The committee voted to move 9 of the applications forward to the step 2 process, which will require each applicant to be much more detailed about their plan. The step 1 applications were generally kind of a rough overview, although some of them were very detailed. Not all of them were extremely detailed, and they had speakers come to speak to their desire for use of these funds in a more general sense. They were moved forward because there was sufficient information to see that they fulfilled the requirements for the use of community preservation funds. So now next month, we are trying to find the date when we'll all meet again for looking at step 2 process. Do you have any questions about any of the particular applications, or is this a time when that should be discussed, Phil?
Can you just brief the committee briefly on the one interesting point came up relating to money that was allocated last year to the developer Ian Rash and the Allender Group?
Yes, Ian Rash, speaking for the Allender Group, put in a request for additional funds for 343 Main Street. That was the former
Berkshire Community College.
Right, Berkshire Community College building. As you may recall, last year, CPC allocated some $225,000 or so for the preservation of the facade of the building. And that work has basically been done, but the people that are going to be in the building changed significantly over the last year. So all of the people who were originally scheduled to use the site pulled out for various reasons, mainly because it would be too expensive for them to use that site. And Ian Roche came back with the idea that they were going to convert the site to housing, including a 20% of that housing to be affordable housing. The committee was at first, well, I mean, this all happened behind the scenes. Why didn't anybody come to discuss with us a change in the use of the property? But in the long run, after discussion, the committee determined that a facade is a facade is a facade, and the historic use of the funds was properly allocated and used. But they did discuss with Ian Roche and the Allender Group that in the future, they want to be a party to information well in advance of a meeting where they're asking for more money. So this group also is asking for funds for affordable housing for the Mahawi block that it just bought. Most of the housing units in that block people can't really live there. It doesn't have adequate heating. There are lots of problems with the use of the building, and it has to be very much reworked. And their idea is to do this thing where they're providing apartments, but also setting aside 20% of those apartments for affordable housing. Construct and the Great Barrington Housing Trust Fund also put in applications, and they're continuing the good work they've been doing over past years, trying to fill in gaps for housing. Any other questions from anyone about any of the possible uses of this money? Understand that the committee has not voted to approve the use of these funds yet. They've just voted to allow the 9 of the 10 candidates to move forward to the next step.
Richard, what is the pool of the money that we are talking about? I mean, you have about 9 applicants. You made it through the
So
first. round, right?
altogether, so far, the requests are for $1,724,950 in total.
And what is the amount that's available?
That I could not get an answer on. I personally was not at the meeting.
Mhm.
And Bill, I don't know if you can speak to this. Have you heard a figure in the past that's currently available?
No, I don't have the number. I guess it is a, if I'm remembering correctly, it's a 3% surcharge on our real estate taxes over and above $100,000 assessment. So it's several $1,000,000. I don't have the number off the top of my head, but it's a big pile of money. And then the state matches that amount.
Oh, on top of it.
Right.
Right, that there was no sense at the meeting that there was any approaching the limit of the funds that were available.
Okay.
There was no sense during that meeting that that was of concern. And these funds do stay in an account and they move year to year. So not using them does not make the funds go
You don't
away.
lose it. Yeah, okay.
So far, it's really just a matter of, are these funds appropriately used, and are these good projects to
Right.
work with?
And just to clarify, the committee votes to approve at the committee level to make a recommendation to go to the vote for the approval by the town.
Absolutely, yes. As you all remember in former town meetings, yearly meetings, those particular items are voted on by the entire town for use. But this committee is the one that's vetting everything and making sure that they have a real plan and not just a pie in the sky idea that they want all this money and they're going to try to do something good with it. It has to be specific. Any other questions from anyone about specifics or anything else?
Thank you.
That was great.
Very well done, Richard.
Yeah.
Much better than I could have done.
No, I don't believe that.
Better
But
than any PowerPoint.
it was very good to learn. I listened to the entire meeting because I could not personally attend, but I was able to listen to the entire meeting and discuss with the chair and with Phil as well, and review all of the materials. They really do make the materials available for each individual on the committee very well. So in the future, I will be there at all meetings, so it'll be great.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so we'll just move to the future meeting schedule. That came up a bit. So our next meeting is very clear. That's December 13th. I don't think we'll have a huge agenda unless there are some sort of year-end issues that come up relating to the reserve fund. That's typically been the case, and maybe we have some other matters to discuss, like the finance policy, but I don't think there's a huge agenda. Just big picture, particularly for those who are new to the committee. We have no plans for a January meeting, which is typical. Then we have we're getting into our busy season, which is the budget process in February and early March. So we typically have somewhere between 4 to 6 meetings in February to early March on the budget process. And there'll be a schedule that's put out in draft form, and we could kind of submit some feedback on that. Although, again, it's obviously it's a big group. It's the select board and this committee. So we have to all do our best to kind of squeeze into that schedule, or just miss a meeting, which is okay as well. For those of you that have interest in time, the budget materials from the prior years are all on the town website. If you can't find them, I can help you find them. There's a PowerPoint presentation that Mark puts together, and there's a very detailed budget binder or PDF that goes department by department, looking at the budget and last year and this year and what they're requesting. And so a lot of that information is there. And so it might be useful, again, for those new to the process to kind of look at that a bit sometime before the process begins, so you're not, so your head isn't spinning totally when it all kicks in. While we're not doing anything in January, Mark is working very hard with his staff to put together those budget materials and to figure out what the budget should be and what we should consider. So it'll be a very slow January for us, a very busy January for Mark, and then we'll engage in all these meetings in February.
So can I just ask, because Anne had brought up the idea of changing our regular Tuesday meeting time, really, what you're describing, we're going to have a lot more meetings in February than are just going to fit into this schedule anyway. We're probably going to conflict with any number of committees.
Right, yeah.
So for now, we needn't worry about that particular issue, I think.
Right, I think it's really more of a regular meetings would resume, just picking something out of the air, more March, April, May. It's hard to tell. So yes, that's a good point. We don't need to decide that now.
Okay.
But I guess when are we going to decide the budget meeting dates if we're not meeting in January? Is it possible that we'd have some dates proposed for by the December meeting, or just for all of us to reserve that on our calendars? Mark, do you think that might be an option? I know the poor person will have just started a week prior.
I think December would be too soon to have a schedule in place, but there's no reason we can't nail down a calendar by email. It doesn't need to be discussed in a public meeting.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, I think the way it's happened, and in the past, I think has just been an email that gets circulated by the town staff at some point in January as to what the tentative schedule would be, asking for feedback.
Right.
That's what I remember, yeah.
You can.
I thought it was something that Sue would present as actually part of an agenda to look at, but I could be misremembering. I thought it was actually, she gave a page in the packet.
Yeah.
So yeah, just we'll just assume, but we are going to assume the same general schedule, like the last week of January through the end of February, and then the hearing sometime in March. That's the general ballpark.
We were a little ahead of schedule this year with the budget presentation in the end of January. I'm guessing with the transition this year, you could probably anticipate early February for the initial presentation.
Okay.
With a public hearing scheduled for late March.
Okay, that's helpful.
And I think in the past, we generally meet on Wednesdays during February.
Yes, I think that's right.
Okay, well, obviously, I mean, obvious point, Mark, is whenever you could try to get a draft schedule out with your new team, then that would obviously be helpful, but we'll all do our best.
Yeah, I'd like to connect with Allison once she gets started. But the budget season, as I said earlier, is priority number one. As soon as she starts, we'll dive right into that. So
great. Thank you.
I guess I'm sorry, Phil, to interrupt you, but I just want to bring up this issue that we have to get the policy, the budget and finance policy approved by the select board before the budget season starts, I assume. And so I know that the select board was asking if some of us could be at the meeting when they discuss it, because if they have any change, it has to come back to us for approval. So I'm wondering, would it make the most sense to try and get select board members to come to our December meeting, or for at least a quorum of us to be at the next select board meeting, not the 21st, but the one after, when this gets discussed? What should we plan for? Steve and Eric are in the audience. I don't know if they want to weigh in on this.
I'm going to go ahead and open. Steve, your mic is open.
Yeah, I would prefer that our first select board meeting in December, that we would invite the entire finance committee and hopefully hammer out a policy then, instead of ping ponging it back and forth to who knows when between the two groups.
So if it's on the December agenda, do you think it could be early in the meeting?
Yeah, that's fine. Hopefully that's going to be a light agenda other than licenses, but we'll see.
Okay.
Generally, we put joint meetings at the top of the agenda so that we can.
Yeah. Okay.
We may be able to do it at 5:32 instead of 6. Well,
That would be very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll poll the select board.
Okay.
Usually they're pretty open to that.
Okay, so that's December 5th, right? Okay.
December 5th.
If I heard that right, it's December 5th.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Okay, good point. Good point, Ann.
Oh, thank you. And I'm
I've
glad
been-
you
I've
could.
been hoping the finance policy would get magically approved. But obviously we need to,
Still very positive about what we're putting forth, but the select board does have to have to weigh in and.
it should be painless. I just, we went through initial draft, we took the select board's comments, revised the draft, and we sent them that revised draft, which is what they now have. Okay. Citizen speak time. And any media time. All right, seeing none, I guess we can move to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
Second,
All right, I think we'll all approve that.
thanks, Phil.
Okay, thanks, everyone. Have a good evening.
Thank
You too. Bye-bye.